Greetings, my name is Christopher Paisley. I'm a Philadelphia public school teacher. This is my YouTube channel, Inside White Fragility. Today I'd like to talk about the US Olympic Committee allowing protests at the Games. Now, according to a story in American Greatness, the US Olympic and Paralympic Committee said this week they will not sanction athletes for raising their fists or kneeling during the national anthem at Olympic trials, despite a decades-long policy banning protests at the official games. The USOPC released a 9-page document Tuesday about the sort of racial and social demonstrations that will and won't be allowed. Holding up a fist, kneeling during the anthem, and wearing hats or face masks with the phrases such as Black Lives Matter or words such as equality or justice will be permitted, according to the document. Now, this is interesting because it's just the Olympic trials, so it's just the American trials, and they're saying that this will be allowed at the trials this summer. But we all know, and I'm going to make a prediction, that this is going to find its way in to the Olympic Games this summer during the international competition, because America is going to set the tone, and then you're going to have all of these protests and all of these politics infiltrating the games that are supposed to be about putting down your arms and putting down your grievances and putting down your politics and coming together through sport and interaction, but it's going to find its way in. That's my prediction. I'm sure that that's going to happen. So if you go inside this 9-page document, which is written by the United States Olympic and Paralympic Committee, you can go inside the document and you can see exactly what is allowed, what kind of politics are allowed, what kind of protests are allowed, and what kind of politics and protests aren't allowed. And it's one thing to say that we're going to bring in politics and protests if you made an attempt to try and have balance and show both sides of issues. But of course, they're not only bringing in politics, but they are regulating it like they do with everything with critical race theory and anti-racism. They're just bringing in one side, and they're doing it under the guise of social justice and racial justice. So things like Black Lives Matter and left of center socialist agenda and things like that, that can be represented. But anything that broadens the scope or talks about other things is going to be stamped as hate speech, and it will not be allowed. For example, Blue Lives Matter or All Lives Matter, or if people came in and they said they wanted to talk about unborn lives and all of the tragedy and infanticide that happens against all of these children that are aborted every single year, I'm sure if you came in with that, that would not be allowed. Actually, there is a document, there's a link inside this 9-page document that brings you to a page that is set up by the Anti-Defamation League, which is kind of just a joke, and then they have all of their quote-unquote hate symbols. If you go down and you look at what some of these hate symbols are, which are not allowed to be talked about at the Olympics, here's a funny one. Not that you would bring this up in the Olympics, but this is a funny one that the Anti-Defamation League talks about it as a hate symbol. Anti-Antifa messages. So if you're anti-Antifa, you're a hater. Okay, the domestic terror group Antifa that was investigated by the United States Department of Justice as a real domestic terror group, a legitimate domestic terror group that causes millions of dollars in damage. They're hateful. In their own ways, they're racist. They're polarizing. They're divisive. They're violent. But if you're against Antifa, you're a hater, according to the Anti-Defamation League. Here's something else that's interesting. It's not something that you would bring up during the Olympics, but this is another quote-unquote hate symbol by the Anti-Defamation League. Anti-racist is a code word for anti-white. Now, I've said that a few different times on my channel that, a lot of parts of anti-racism are anti-white because anti-racism targets whiteness. It wants to disrupt whiteness. It wants to dismantle whiteness. It looks at whiteness and white culture as something that must be eliminated. So when you look at it in that way, you could say, that does sound like it's a little bit anti-white. So in a way, anti-racist is anti-white. But of course, according to the Anti-Defamation League, you're not allowed to say that. If you said the phrase anti-racist is a code word for anti-white, bang, you're stamped as a hateful person. It's hate speech, and that thing could never be allowed in the Olympics. Not that I would ever bring that up in the Olympics, because I'm not a person who would want to politicize and bring in grievances and take the attention away from the athletes, which is what it's all about, to my own, personal politics. But of course, the Olympic Committee is assuming that that's what they're going to do. All right. So let's take a quick look at the history of the Olympics, the ancient Greek Olympics, and then we'll get to the modern Olympics, and we will see how the United States Olympic Committee, how they're allowing these polarizing and divisive politics that are going to take over the scene, take over the stage from the athletes, and instead of bringing us together, putting down our arms, putting down our grievances, putting down our politics just for 2 weeks every 4 years, just 2 weeks every 4 years. Of course, that's not allowed because every single inch of the American culture, every single inch of the American culture, Shakespeare says all the world is a stage. And with the anti-racism, critical race theory, identity politics, all the world is a stage for identity politics, even the Olympics, where it's not supposed to be. So let's take a look at the ancient Olympics. Now, interestingly, the ancient Greek Olympics was a place where soldiers would put down their arms so for 2 weeks they could participate in this healthy competition. So according to a website, which is called, and I want to get the correct name of the website, according to the olympicgames.org, seems pretty accurate. Okay, here was what was part of the ancient Greek Olympics. The classic example was when the Persians invaded Greece in the summer of 480 BC. A lot of the Greek city-states agreed that they would put together an allied army, but they had a very hard time getting one together because so many people wanted to go to the Olympics. So they actually had to delay putting the army together to defend the country against the Persians. The threat of invasion or not, the games took place every 4 years from 776 BC to at least 393 AD. All free Greek males were allowed to take part, from farmlands to royal heirs, although the majority of Olympians were soldiers. So if you look at the history of the Olympics, the soldiers put down their arms. They stopped organizing the army. They said, time out, let's take a break. Let's take a break from killing each other. Let's take a break from our politics. Let's take a break from our grievances. And let's just engage in this healthy competition. So that was kind of the tradition from the very beginning. All right. But if you look at the modern Olympics, you will see that this is very clearly, which started in 1896. The first modern Olympic Games were in 1896 in Athens. Okay. If you look at the modern Olympics, you'll see very clearly that this is a venue for honest participation, honest athletic participation, and the center is supposed to be the athletes and the games and the participation, not politics, not grievances, and all of these things. So let's take a quick look at the Olympic rings, because the Olympic rings tell us a lot about what the Olympics are about. So the 5 Olympic rings are supposed to be the, not the 5 continents because some of the continents are joined, but it's basically supposed to be all the continents of the world together, coming together. They're joined together. Notice the rings are joined together because it symbolizes the joining of all of the continents of the world coming together for 2 weeks, putting down their politics, putting down their grievances, putting down their arms, and saying, let's just engage in this healthy competition. And then if you look at the Olympic website, you could see building a better world through sport, okay, the values, okay, excellence, respect, and friendship, and the mission, ensuring the uniqueness and the regular celebration of the Olympic Games, put athletes at the heart of the Olympic movement, promote sport and Olympic values in society with a focus on young people. So the vision was to build a better world through sport. Notice, sport, not a better world through grievance, not a better world through politics, not a better world through bickering and division and polarization, a better world through sport, okay? The values, excellence, respect, and friendship, okay? The mission, ensure the uniqueness of the regular celebration of the Olympic Games, put athletes at the heart of the Olympic movement. This is the most important thing, putting the athletes at the heart of the movement, not your political mission, not your political statement, not your social justice agenda, not your grievances, not Black Lives Matter. Black Lives Matter should not be at the center of the Olympic Games. So when the committee is saying you can wear hats, you can have slogans, you can hold up your fist, you can kneel, seriously? You're going to take the attention away from these athletes, these hardworking men and women who've worked their whole lives to get to this moment. You're going to take away their time to shine because you want to divide and polarize with your politics? You want to politic during this time? Seriously? It's really sad because it's like, can't you just take a break for 2 weeks? Can't you take a break for 2 weeks and admit, let's come together? Let's come together. The United States Olympic team is supposed to be a group of young men and women coming together and celebrating the flag, celebrating the country, celebrating unity, not dividing, not polarizing, not politicking, not bringing in grievances. Okay? It's completely backwards. It's been turned on its head. Here are the working principles in the Olympics: universality and solidarity, unity and diversity, autonomy and good governance and sustainability. But let's look at universality and solidarity. How is being universal and coming together in universality? How do you have that when you have these divisive, polarizing identity politics being pumped into this competition? Okay? You want to politic? You want to do all this stuff? Great, do it. Do it on your own time. Do it in your hometown. Do it in your school board. Do it wherever you want. March down your street. Do it. Put up the sign in your window, whatever. But when we come together for 2 weeks to celebrate and put down our arms and our grievances, can't you just take a time out and forget yourself and your selfish political motives and agendas for 5 seconds? Seriously? I don't care what your cause is. You know what I mean? Your cause can be whatever your cause is. But can't you put it aside for 5 seconds and come together and find this universal understanding, and let's just have competition and healthy sport as a competition? The International Olympic Committee, by the way, still believes in that. And they call it the Rule of 50. And I want to read it right now. Rule 50 guidelines developed by the IOC Athletes Commission. So this is the commission of the athletes. Let me read the statement. As athletes, we are passionate about our sports and achieving our sporting performance goals. For each and every one of us, that passion continues into everyday life, where we advocate for change on issues of great importance to us and our world. That desire to drive change can naturally make it very tempting to use the platform of an appearance at the Olympic Games to make our point. However, all of us are here at the Olympic Games because one day we dreamt of being an Olympian and maybe even an Olympic champion. The unique nature of the Olympic Games enables athletes from all over the world to come together in peace and harmony. We believe that the example we set by competing with the world's best while living in harmony in the Olympic Village is a uniquely positive message to send to an increasingly divided world. This is why it is important on both a personal and global level that we keep the venues, the Olympic Village, and the podium neutral and free from any form of political, religious, or ethnic demonstrations. Where are protests and demonstrations not permitted during the Olympic Games? At all Olympic venues, including on the field of play, in the Olympic Village, during Olympic medal ceremonies, during the opening, closing, and other official ceremonies. Any protest or demonstration outside Olympic venues must obviously comply with local legislation wherever law forbids such actions. So there's the rule by the International Olympic Committee, and by the way, it was the committee that was put together by the Athletes Commission, that you're not to have this divisive and polarizing and selfish political agenda and narrative and grievance at the core of the games. But what does the U.S. do? What does the United States Olympic Committee do? Hey, guess what? During our Olympic trials, we're going to pump in all these politics. We're going to have all this grievance. We're going to divide our people into camps because America isn't divided enough already. We're going to split it in half again. We're not going to put aside our differences for a couple of weeks. We're going to rank them. We're going to charge them up. We're going to pour gas on the fire. We're going to put out Black Lives Matter, divisive and polarizing messaging that half the country doesn't agree with. Not talking about the slogan meaning Black Lives Matter in terms of the mantra. We're talking about the Black Lives Matter political organization with a political action committee and a PAC that has a political agenda that wants to defund police and disrupt nuclear families and bring in Marxist socialism. We're going to have that at the Olympics, at the trials at least, so we can set the groundwork, so we can pump this into the Olympic Games. And what's the international world going to do when the great United States comes in and does this? They're just going to set the example by basically taking a dump on the Olympic values and the idea of coming together and having this universal harmony and putting aside our politics, our differences, and our grievances. So just to sum this up, I'm very disappointed and frustrated. As someone who's a coach and a teacher and an athlete, it was my dream for a long, long time to be in the Olympics. I ran track when I was a young kid, and I always dreamed of being in the Olympics. And of course, it's such a hard thing to do. It never worked out, but that's fine. But the idea of using this as a venue for these kind of politics, and you can dress it up as, oh, it's social justice, and oh, it's just trying to, bring about justice and end the wrongs and all this other stuff. But we know when you strip it down and you look within side of all this stuff, it's divisive. It's one side. It has an agenda, and it doesn't look, bringing in the politics doesn't even bring in both sides of the issue of any of these issues. So those of you who are watching this, when you turn on the television this summer and you watch the Olympic trials and you want to escape because you want to watch honest athletic competition, the way it looks now is you're not going to get it. You're going to end up turning off the news and turning off all the politics and trying to get away from politics for 5 minutes. And you're going to turn on these sports hoping to have an escape, but you're not going to have an escape. You're going to get even more angry. You're going to see this stuff that's going to be stuck in your face, and then they're going to try and put this into the games this summer. And it's a tragedy and it's a shame.